Let's get the views now of Dr. Liam Fox, the former Defence Secretary and Conservative candidate, who joins us now from Bristol. Thank you very much for being with us. Labour have said today that they will ensure there is a nuclear-armed submarine at sea at all times, and that their expert advice is that that requires 4 submarines. So where is the difference with Conservative policy?
Well, the difficulty, of course, is with the political arithmetic. It's very clear that if Labour lose a lot of the Scottish seats, which does look likely, then the SNP are likely to be a potential coalition partner for them. They have said not only do they want nuclear weapons out of Scotland, they want the entire United Kingdom to be without nuclear weapons. That poses a risk for a future potential continuation of our nuclear deterrence, which is extremely important at a time when you're seeing a resurgent and aggressive and expansionist Russia.
It doesn't, though, does it? Because in those circumstances, we can assume that a Conservative opposition would vote with a Labour government to maintain the nuclear deterrent.
Well, quite how strong is Labour's commitment? I mean, I hope that we do have a continuous nuclear deterrent policy in this country. It's very important for our national security. The New Statesman surveying Labour candidates said 75% of them are against Trident. In fact, 55 of them have come out and said they wouldn't support renewal of the deterrent programme.
I accept that there are people in Labour who are opposed to this policy, but all I'm saying, on past precedent, you personally, in those circumstances, if you were in opposition and the vast majority of your Conservative colleagues would vote with a Labour government to renew the nuclear deterrent, wouldn't you?
Well, I think the safest way, of course, is to have a Conservative government that believes in the concept of nuclear deterrence. And I was interested that you said that Labour today were now saying that they would have 4 submarines committed to the programme, because this morning one of their spokesmen was saying they would have... Yes, we've had a different number. We've had 3 today, we've had 4, we've had around 4. We need to have a commitment to it, because you can't actually have continuous at-sea deterrence with 3 submarines on current technology. It does actually make a difference. It may sound a very small matter, but it's not.
Would you accept that this is pretty low politics, talking not about what Labour is promising, but what their alleged potential coalition partners, the SNP, are saying, and then rounding it off with a personal attack on Ed Miliband?
Well, I find, this idea that no politicians ever get into political personal comments. And when I've heard all the comments about George Osborne and David Cameron from the Labour Party for the last several years, leaving that aside, I think that what you have here is a situation where the electoral arithmetic says that Labour couldn't govern alone. They would require the SNP to back them up. The SNP don't want a nuclear deterrent. It's a fairly simple commitment. The Conservative Party has made very clear that we will commit to 4 submarines. We will pay for the upgrade, and these numbers being bandied about are nonsense. We estimate it's about 25 billion over 25 years, which doesn't sound like a lot of money for protection from nuclear blackmail compared to 9 billion for the Olympics for 3 weeks. So people really need to try to get their priorities right. It's a very dangerous world. Other countries out there are trying to get nuclear weapons. We're potentially prone to nuclear blackmail. The only way we can prevent that is to have a continuous at-sea deterrent. It's the only way to make it work. The Liberals' idea, of course, is quite bonkers, that you would only have a partial deterrent and wheel it out when international tension got worse. That seems to me to be the craziest policy of all. But what we must have is a continuing defence nuclear posture for the United Kingdom.
Mentioning the Liberal Democrats, your coalition partners, isn't it true that one of the failures of this government from a Conservative perspective has been that you would like to have made this commitment to the nuclear submarines already, but you had to postpone that to gratify your Liberal Democrat partners?
It's one of the realities of coalition politics that you can't always get exactly what you want, and we certainly went a long way to ensuring that the programme was ready. Should we be able to press the button immediately after the election? Our manifesto is going to make very clear our commitment to that, and the public will have to decide, in a very dangerous world, who they actually think is going to be more responsible with their national security. I'm very glad that we've got into this debate today, because I was beginning to wonder whether international affairs and national security would form part of this election, and I think it's getting the voters a very clear choice.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is that you, as Conservatives, might end up reforming the coalition with the Liberal Democrats, and you might not be able to deliver on what you're saying today about the nuclear deterrent, because you'd have to buy them off.
Well, the Liberals, of course, went along with the investment in the replacement for the Trident submarines, and that was a reasonable thing for us to do. We've spent a great deal of money on this programme already. Were we not to continue, it would mean a lot of job losses in the United Kingdom, as well as a loss of our international prestige. And I think, having looked at all the alternatives, that if reality came around, I'm sure that at least some of the Liberal Democrats would see the light on this issue.
Would you like to repeat what your successor as Defence Secretary, Michael Fallon, has said today? Do you think that Ed Miliband is a backstabber?
I think the question that he put was very legitimate. Would Labour be willing to give up something that a lot of their MPs don't like anyway in order to get the keys to number 10? Now, whatever the answer to that question is, it's certainly a risk for the British people, and it's something that voters will want to have in mind when they go to the ballot box on the 7th of May.
What? So you're saying you think he is a backstabber?
I think it's a question that is perfectly legitimate. Is the Labour Party and the Labour leader, would they be willing to trade away in a deal with the SNP our nuclear deterrent simply to get the keys to number 10? I wouldn't like to have to gamble on that answer.
OK, Dr. Fox, thank you.